All right, I am finally back with a city update, so let's get into it. Today we're working on this section here. We are going to be starting out with some water. Now, if you want to see how I do my water, I've got a tutorial up on my channel for it. So you can see it's pretty basic. Here is the final product of the water, and then also here is the rock work that we built for this. Again, I've got a tutorial on my channel for that as well. So now let's get into the actual building. So if you caught my city planning video from a couple days, then you know that we are building this building from Cinque Terre, and I'm super pumped to use a ton of my dark red that I showed off in my latest haul video. So if you missed those two, go check those out after this video. But all right, starting with the ground floor, you can see I kept it very simple with these sand green and white awnings. I got these cool 3 wide dark brown windows, and the texturing on this entire build was super tedious because it is all the same color. Now, I think it turned out really nicely. One of the key design features of this building is the white coining on the corners of the build. Now, I use these dark green windscreens as an arched awning, and I think they turned out really nicely. The contrast with the dark red, I think it all just fits really well. But my favorite aspect of the ground floor is I finally got to use this idea I've had for a long time to use these fence pieces as an arched pergola of the doorway. Eventually we'll add some landscaping. And then you can see I went back and I added some white tiled arches just to go around the green awnings and kind of tie everything together. Now moving to the second floor, we're keeping that same dark red texturing throughout, as well as the white coining on the corners. And I did these nice dark green shutters that are comprised of just a ton of 1x2 dark green jumpers. And to create a little bit of variation in the building, I did have some of the shutters be closed, some are open, but I gotta say, this must be my most tedious and part intensive and time consuming build. I'm really glad to not be using dark red for a while. So one of the aspects I was most excited for on this building though were these little bump outs. So I added a balcony to it, and I think it just gives some nice modulation to the building, gives a little bit of depth, and it's something I don't do in all my builds, and I want to start incorporating these kind of architectural elements in some future builds. So you can see on the railing for the balcony, I used these white droid bodies, and then I added the little flower piece on the stud, and I think it turned out really cool. It's kind of different from what I typically do. I mean, it's a white balcony, but it's a nice variation from just using typical bars. Now the top floor is where I took some of my own creative liberty, and I made this red structure a little smaller than in real life. I actually did it because it's similar to what I did for one of my rebrickable models for the top floor. And the balcony I kept really simple. In contrast with the droid bodies, this is just some 6-length bars with the droid arms. I was hesitant to use the droid arms because that's what I used on my light nougat building, and I really tried not to repeat things, especially if they're super close together in the city. I like to create a little bit more variation, but honestly, I went with it because it just kind of felt right and seemed like the right technique to use here. Now, for the roof, I also did the same technique as a light nougat building because honestly, I really like this technique. I think it looks really clean, and I don't really mind having them be too close together. I think it just really fits with the overall vibe of the building. All right, so real quick, let's take a look at this little section in between the rock work and the building. You guys had some great ideas for me in the city planning video, and I want to go back and do something a little bit more intentional later, but for now I just needed a placeholder, so I built this simple staircase, and these little gray slopes on the side were actually inspired by this staircase in Positano. So let's go ahead, place it in the city, and I think it looks good. It's not perfect, still a lot of details need to be addressed, and we'll do that in the future, but for now, I think it works. All right, so now finally, time for the tiling on the corners. I have been waiting to get to this part of the build for so long. I have been working on this build on and off for probably the last month, just bit by bit, and it's really satisfying to see it all start to take shape. I think the tiling obviously just adds such a nice clean line to the edges of the building, and it really just makes it feel like it's finally finished. You don't have any exposed studs, and I'm really happy about it. Now you'll see though on the top floor with this little structure, I did end up running out of those modified bricks with the adjacent studs, so I had to use just some 1x1s that I had on hand, which is why it looks a little messy. I might go back in the future and change it, but I also might not. So now it's time to add some context around the build, and I'm really excited to use this wave design using these white cutout tiles. I think it's going to be a really nice focal piece of this whole area. So after that, I'm just adding some typical cobblestone texturing in the same manner I used above, just monochromatic round pieces. And then you can see I did the same on the other side. I just didn't film it, and honestly I ended up running out of pieces to finish this whole section out, so we'll have to save that for the next city update. So speaking of the next city update, real quick, I do want to show you guys this nougat building that I've been working on. I'm already pretty far along with this build, so definitely check back soon for that build. I've also got a Star Wars video coming out in the next week that I'm really excited about. So Let's get back to the building though. Now it's time to add some flowers on all of these windowsills. And since this building is monochromatic, I thought it would be fun just to do a multicolored kind of a vibe here. I've got all these colorful landscape pieces, so I went multicolored. Now, because some of these shutters are really close to the windowsill and the closed ones especially, I had to get a little creative with it. It's not as dense as I usually do, but I think it works in this instance. So after that, I added some landscaping to the building itself using olive green and light pink. I'm still working through exactly how I want this to be. I can't decide if I want it to be like super lush or if I want it to be a little bit more minimal. So let me know what you guys think. All right, now it is time for the before and the after. Here is the before and here is the after. It is such a big difference from the tiling to the rock work to the dark red building. I'm just really pleased with how this turned out. It was a ton of work. So if you guys enjoyed today's video, please hit that like button. If you want to see what's upcoming, make sure to hit subscribe and we'll see you next time.